Welcome back, everybody, to the channel. This is United vs. Everybody. I am your host, Sean. Apologies, not able to do the live today on the scouting reports, but there's a lot going on right now. I'm sure you guys will understand, but I did want to make sure I at least threw these out there so I can get your thoughts on them. So we are going to dive into, if you've been following along, it's been a bit of a crazy ride, right? We're going back through a lot of my old scouting reports because, in case you haven't noticed, I am a bit of a scouting nerd. Like I said before I had the channel, before I was even doing stuff with Stretty News, I had my own blog. It was literally just scouting report upon scouting report upon scouting report. So I'm sure you guys have probably seen a couple of the links. You've probably gone and checked it out by now. But that's what we're doing in this series. We're going back through my old scouting reports from 2 years ago, looking at those players who I was keeping an eye on, players who I thought maybe could be the next big thing. And we're kind of looking at where they are now. And I'm kind of letting you guys decide, were they hits, were they misses, that I get it right, that I get it wrong. So that's what we're doing. If we've been going through a lot, we've probably gone through like 50 players already. We're almost done. I promise we're getting close to being done. But we got a few more to go, including today. So we are going to get strapped in. So you guys put on your fun to wear, put your scouting hats on, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Make sure you hit the memberships as well. Make sure that's the best way you can get involved in the content we put out on the channel as well. Also, don't forget, GoGoalShop right up in the top right-hand corner. If you guys do want to register with that code, you will get $5 off your first order at GoGoalShop. They've got this year's United kits already, aside from the third, because that haven't been released yet, but they do have the away, they do have the home, both fan and authentic versions. You guys have seen me rock a couple. I've got another one on the way. I'll be sure to show you guys that when it gets here so you guys can check out, but they are pretty sweet. They don't cost an arm and a leg, and you don't give money to the Glazers. So I think it's just, win, win, win. It's about the math, really. So let's dive in, you guys, starting with my first scouting report from this batch. Monaco's attacking midfielder, Elias Ben Seguir. So you guys probably watch Monaco. They've got a few good players right now. We've been linked to a couple over the years, and they've got a ton going on. Aklios is another one we've spoken about, but I scouted this guy back in July of 2023. He can play as a 10. He can play as a left midfielder, but he's still at Monaco now a couple years later. He made his first team debut for Monaco as an 18-year-old in January. That was the January that I scouted him. That's when he made his first team debut. But he did score a brace in that match, including the winner. So he already kind of broke onto the scene in an incredible way. Needless to say, he got my attention. Versatile. He can play in a front two. He can play as a 10. He can play as a left wing. Doesn't really matter. Either way, you break down his numbers, top 5% for progressive passes that season, top 5% for attempts on target, pass completion, top 10% for progressive carries during that time as well. Very defensive for an attacker as well. His tackles for attacking midfielders were in the top 1%. Interceptions, top 15% as well. So very good numbers, very good at breaking out into the scene, making a name for himself. Pretty defensive, too, for an attacker, like I said. So I like everything I see from him. These days, he's sort of moved into that left midfield spot, but he's still not kind of hammered down a guaranteed spot in the starting 11. But still, even without that being said, he pitched in with 9 goals, 4 assists this past season as well from that left wing position. So pretty decent numbers for a youngster still. Ball progression still well above average. His tackles and interceptions still well above average as well. I'm starting to wonder if maybe he needs a new challenge, maybe a move. Sometimes a change of scenery, maybe someplace like a Dortmund or something. Reportedly, Bayern were interested, Leverkusen were interested, Atletico, City, Liverpool, all been linked to him recently. Inter reportedly kind of still see him as a backup to Ademola Lookman. What's going on there. Big clubs interested, maybe, or backup option, sorry, because Inter are looking to buy Ademola Lookman. That's why. Big clubs are interested, though, so maybe there's no smoke without fire. But maybe it was I onto something here with this guy. Maybe he's not quite hit the heights that we thought, but maybe he's kind of hit his ceiling at Monaco in the French league. Maybe he's ready for another challenge, maybe an opportunity to break out in the scene. You guys, let me know what you think. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next player on my list. Guys, make sure you hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you are new. Let's talk a little bit about Ruben Vargas. I'll be honest with you about Ruben Vargas, guys. Um, Not really sure what I saw in him. Even at the time I did the scouting report, you look at some of this, what we're going to talk about, and you're going to see a lot of red flags that I normally don't ignore, but for some reason I decided to ignore them. I don't know what's going on. He was at Augsburg in the Bundesliga when I scouted him back in July of 2023. Currently at Sevilla. Guy's just injury prone. Even during this season, I scouted him. Only 6 goals, 1 assist. Not many goal involvements in the previous 2 years combined. So I'm not sure where I got this from. What I was caught out by was his very impressive percentiles. Literally everything was in that, and with everything was in the green. Everything was really, really high. But then the injuries just kept coming. So he already had a couple injuries before I scouted him. Should have been a red flag, but the injuries just kind of picked up again. Maybe I just caught him at the high of his fitness. But he's played just 21 matches in the last 2 years, and only a combined 3 goals, 1 assist in that time as well. So not exactly pulling up any trees anywhere. I don't think we need to take a verdict on this one. I think that I was maybe just drunk or on some extremely high painkillers or something when I did this one. But I think that we could safely say that this one just did not did not work out for me, unfortunately. I'm going to transition to this real quick because this is better. And then I'm going to do this. Hold on one second. There we go. That's better. Better? I think so. All right. So be kind with your assessment of Ruben Vargas, but we'll just say that one didn't work out so hot. Moving on. Dan Ndoye was at Basel when I scouted this guy, currently at Bologna. So a lot of people, I think, have started to hear more about him. Let's shake off Ruben Vargas. Dan Ndoye impressed in his first season at Basel. So much so that they quickly activated the buy option in his loan. 7 goals, 2 assists as a young winger. 4 times team of the week, 2 times man of the match that season. He was really on top of everything. Top 1% for take-ons and carries. He led the league that season in successful dribbles as well. So again, just a winger who loves to just get the ball forward and can do it. And then he can get involved in the goals too. He's at Bologna now. Last year improved his numbers, 9 goals, 6 assists. Carries still in the top 8%. His off-the-ball defensive output has improved as well. Still just 24, so he's kind of getting at that age where maybe he's, looking to kind of get that big move. Maybe he might be due for one soon. Forest are reportedly interested in him, maybe to replace Anthony Elanga, who went to Newcastle. Napoli have been linked. Dortmund have been linked as well. I really like Ndoye. I think this one was an absolute hit. Is he an absolute world-class player? No. Is he what I thought he could be? Absolutely. You guys let me know. I'm sure a lot of us are more familiar with him this last couple of years. So let me know what your thoughts are on Dan Ndoye. I think that one was an absolute hit. Speaking of absolute hits, talk about Malik Tillman. So I've been watching this guy for a while. I told you guys I've been watching him for a while. Was it still at Eindhoven when I scouted him? Now he's recently just moved to Bayer Leverkusen this summer. But when he was he was at Eindhoven, but he was on loan at Rangers from Bayern Munich. He was part of Bayern Munich's kind of setup when I did this. But he was on loan at Rangers when I did the scouting report. I know it's kind of all over the place. I'm having trouble just keeping up with it. But he was absolute baller for Rangers that season. 12 goals, 5 assists in all comps when he was just 21. 3 times man of the match, PFA team of the year for the Scottish League, and young player of the year in Scotland as well. This guy had an absolute barnstormer of a loan at Rangers. This is how the loan system really works. This is exactly an example of how utilizing that loan, getting them some experience. They had an excellent season. They come into your team and they do well, or you can move them on, and that's what happened here. But he was class for PSV Eindhoven. Obviously, these last couple of years was looking really, really good for the U.S. men's national team this summer as well. Literally all of the top percentiles still last season. 16 goals, 5 assists last year at Eindhoven. 9 goals, 12 assists the year before. Do we really need to take a verdict? This guy is an absolute baller. Leverkusen got themselves an absolute gem. He was one I really would have liked at United. I think he would have suited our system to a T. Very good in that final phase of attack. Really good at making those late runs, getting involved in the build-up. and link up play in the final third. I really like Tillman. I know you guys do as well. Let me know how I did with that one. Let's move on. Brian Brobby. Very disappointed in this kid. Again, not all my scouting reports back then were players that I predicted necessarily to be stars. Some of them, in this case, were just players that were linked to United at the time. So there were a couple of scouting reports where we got linked, and I just kind of like what I do on the channel sometimes to do a little bit of a scouting report. Brobby is an example of that. We were linked to him way back then, that first summer, that Ten Hag, that the following summer. So like Ten Hag had been here for a year. Brobby was kind of linked to us, obviously, at Ajax, former Ten Hag player. Surprise, surprise, linked with a former Ten Hag player. I wonder how he's still at Ajax, but then I remember he's still just only 23. For a few years, though, it did look like Brobby might have been the next big thing. He had 14 goals, 4 assists in that 22-23 season, so no secret why we were linked with him. 22 goals, 9 assists in 23-24. But then something just happened. 7 goals, 6 assists last season, so kind of not doing us so hot anymore. He's had an interesting couple of years, though, really. A lot of this has to do with maybe off the pitch stuff. And I think people underestimate the impact of off the pitch stuff. Brian Brobby was apparently blackmailed. I read somewhere too that there's these people had like shot one of his friends as well. So there is a lot going on off the pitch. I mean, that's crazy. And I think this had been going on for a long time over the course of like several months. And so that can kind of play a role. I mean, people forget about some of the stuff that other United players have had going on off the pitch. It does play a role. It does kind of shift your focus a little bit. It is a bit of a distraction. So that could have something to do with it. But it's crazy though that happened. Like, your friend gets shot, you getting blackmailed. Like, with Brobby as a footballer though, he could be very divisive. I really don't know what's next for him personally. He turned down a move to Como, which I think could prove to be a mistake. I think that could have been an excellent move for him personally. He's had a crazy career. Top of the world at Ajax. Stuff goes on off the pitch and things start falling apart. I think people kind of forgotten about this guy. So interesting to hear what your thoughts are on Brobby, just simply because of the off the pitch stuff. How much of that do you think played a role, and how much of it is just him peaking? Because he was definitely on an upward trajectory. Hopefully maybe he can bounce back. Maybe we can shake it off and move on. I haven't even checked to see what's been going on with a lot of that legal stuff and the blackmail and whatnot, but that's insane. You guys know I get my coffee. It's early when I'm recording this, so but let me know your thoughts on Brobby. Could he still have the potential to do something once we moves on from this stuff or not? I want to know your thoughts. Move on. Let's go look at the opposite end of the pitch. Let's look at center backs for a second. So probably one of the older players that I've scouted, mostly just because they're not all just young stars. Some of them are just these hidden gems that no one really talks about. In this case, Julian Habut. So he's center back, was playing in the Bundesliga at FC Cologne, still in the Bundesliga, now with Stuttgart, 25 at the time when I scouted him. He was an absolute defensive force back in the day, though. Interceptions, aerial duels, blocks, tackles. The guy was doing it all. But he was also, what stood out to me was he's a bit of a modern defender, in that he's able to progress the ball and create chances. He was in the top 3% for assists among center backs at the time. Moved to Stuttgart last season. He was absolutely immense. He was a rock for them. He's still top for aerial duels, interceptions. His ball progression is still excellent as well. 75th percentile for progressive passes and shot creating actions from center backs. So excellent. 3 goals, 1 assist in all competitions too. Not bad for a center back. He's 27 now, and I almost think he'd even be worth a cheap shout as a Licha replacement in our back line, but it looks like Licha is actually progressing really well, and we've got other players as well. But anyone looking for a good left-sided, defensive, modern ball-playing center back who's kind of at the peak of his years, he's definitely worth a shout. So I don't know if you guys watch a whole lot of Stuttgart, but they've done pretty well. You guys let me know what you think, if you're familiar with him or not. I want to know your thoughts on Julian Chaput. So moving on. Abde Etzalzuli. So some of us are probably more familiar with him this last year, but when I scouted him back in July, he was actually on loan at Osasuna, but was technically a Barcelona player at the time. So My angle for that scouting report was whether or not Barcelona's financial woes would kind of force them to sell him just so they can get out of that hole a little bit. He had just come off 6 goals, two assists as a 21-year-old at Osasuna. He was 8th in La Liga for successful triples that year, 95th percentile too, and top percent for take-ons. But he was also really defensively sound as a winger as well. Top 20% for tackles per 90 at Betis last season. Aerials, blocks, clearances, they're all stellar. Like, he's good all-around winger, the kind of winger that like Jose Mourinho likes, right? His carries and take-ons necessarily last season at Betis weren't as good as they were at Osasuna, but they're still well above average, and so it is what it is. But he also had his best season yet last year too. 9 goals, 3 assists in all comps. Still just 23 too. I've seen clubs in Serie A linked. Roma have been linked as well. This kid is definitely a silky kind of techie winger. I do like him a lot. He does definitely like put out La Liga winger vibes though. So whether or not he can hang in the Premier League or a tougher league, it's up to you guys. But I know some of us were talking about him a little bit a while back, but I scouted this guy a couple years ago when he was on loan. So really like that guy a lot. Let me know what you think about Etzel Zuli. We're going to move on to a player that really, I mean, do I really need to go on detail about this next guy or not? Do I really even need to do a scouting report? Maybe I'll just put the photo up there and then we'll just move on. But Hayden Hackney, I know, surprise, surprise. I told you guys I was scouting these guys for a while. Scouted him back in 2023 in July after he had an excellent season for Middlesbrough. Still at Middlesbrough, but if I had my way, he'd be rocking up at Carrington tomorrow. But again, do I need to take a verdict on this kid? What can I say about Hackney that we haven't already discussed on this channel several times? The guy has literally become a ball progression machine under Michael Carrick. Literally top 10% or top percent for progressive passes, top 3% for carries as well, top 10% for shot creating actions. This guy is an excellent midfielder. And I think he's really due for a move to a bigger club. I know other clubs have been linked. I think Spurs were linked as well. Loads of Premier League clubs linked. Everton, I think, as well. We were linked here. I would love him at United. You guys know I would love him at United. I think that a midfield of like Hackney and Lennon Miller for the next decade would be such a force of nature in the Premier League. But it's not up to me either. I mean, easily we could throw Collier and Cash at Middlesbrough, and I think we would get this over the line, no problem. But you guys, I mean, do I really need to take a verdict? Of course, I always ask for the verdict, but I think we all can decide what we want here. I think that was an absolute hit, in my opinion, though. So I'm going to give myself a verdict here, but it's not just for me. You guys let me know what you think. I'm going to move on to the next guy. We're rounding out the team here. Lucas Beltran. So some of you who watch a little bit more South American football might remember this guy from a couple years back. He was at River Plate, striker, currently at Fiorentina. He was just 22 years old when I did this scouting report. He had a stellar season that year, though. 17 goals, 4 assists in all comps was pretty good for the young player. Excellent link-up play, off-the-ball defensive work as well for a striker was all top. Hasn't exactly gone his way since, though. Since his move to Fiorentina the following season after I did this, so almost 2 years ago, didn't really do well. It started off promising, 10 goals, 2 assists in all comps in a bigger league. Sounds great, right? But then just 6 goals, 4 assists last season, after he's been there for a year, just doesn't bode well for him. He's been already linked to an exit from Fiorentina. I saw Galatasaray, Sassuolo, and I saw even a return to River Plate were all rumored as well. Doesn't really sound like Roma or Fiorentina think he can maybe step in to replace Moise Kean, who's heavily linked to a move away. So they're trying to maybe consolidate and make up for both these guys in the aggregate. But I think he could still do a job for any club. Maybe Galatasaray could be a good fit. He needs to find his form. Maybe Fiorentina is just not a great fit. Plus, with Moise Kean having this season he had, it was always going to be difficult. But you guys let me know. Danny, I don't know if you watched him a lot when he was at River Plate. Maybe you've heard some more rumors about maybe him returning. But want to know what you guys think. And one of those strikers that I was really hopeful for, that it just didn't really seem like it worked out that well. So moving on to a guy we've already scouted a little bit on the channel when it came to Olympique Lyon's financial struggles. If you guys remember that, we talked about that like last month or something, because Lyon obviously are dealing with a lot of their own shit, and they could try to offload a few more players. They've already had to get rid of Turkey and guys because of their financial situation. But this guy, I thought, could be an excellent pickup for us if we were, because we were linked with so many young right backs, young right wing backs, and this guy suits that to a T. Right back, I've scouted him a couple years ago when he was still just a kid. But he's 20 years old now. He seems like a good fit. As a teenager, like I said, at Lyon, I was already impressed by Kumbedi. He replaced Malo Gusto. You got to remember, Gusto went to Chelsea. But he earned a regular spot in the starting 11 at Lyon very, very quickly. He had excellent take-on numbers, excellent progression numbers. His tackles that season were in the top 4%. Believed, maybe to be heading for the exit door this summer. Strasbourg, Monaco, Rennes, Nice, other French clubs already been linked. We did a little bit more of a scouting report on him before in the past. You guys can go check that one out. I think it was one of the Kickabout shows with Dylan. If he does go to Strasbourg, though, that pretty much means he's going to Chelsea in a couple of years. But I would still take him as United. Like, I would definitely look to maybe move Dallo on, because Dallo you could actually get money for. Doesn't look like Dallo's going anywhere. You got a new shirt number now, so it is what it is. But I really like this kid. I think he can come in and do an excellent job. Of course, you guys know I'm always going to maybe look to promote guys like Camason, Montato before I look to automatically buy young players. So, but still, depending on how much Lyon need to raise and how much they'd be willing to take, it could be worth a punt. But let's see what happens. You guys let me know if you want to learn a little bit more. Like I said, one of the kickabouts from last month, we did a little deep dive on that, but talking about Lyon struggles as well. So I really like Kumbedi a lot. You guys let me know what you think. Moving on to my last guy today, Kasper Kaslowski. I know, right? Who? So rounding out today's batch of players is probably the guy most of you aren't familiar with. Number 10 was at Vitesse when I scouted him. So obviously you guys know I watch a lot of Eredivisie. Now he's at Gaziantep. So Turkish league, I don't really watch a whole lot of the Turkish league, if I'm honest. There's a couple players I keep an eye on, but I don't watch it. But he was 19 at Vitesse at the time I scouted him. But he almost didn't even have a career in football at all. As I wrote about in that scouting report, he was actually in a car accident in 2020 and actually broke 3 of his vertebrae, required spinal surgery, and then he was out for like 6-7 months just altogether. So it was just, he almost didn't even play football ever. At Vitesse, he was playing on the left-hand side, 3 goals, 5 assists in all comps, 1 times team of the week, 2 times man of the match, top 10% that season for carries, top 3% for take-ons. He was an absolute baller in terms of just beating people, moving that ball up the pitch. All the other percentiles were stellar as well. And he was still just 19 at the time. And he had come back from that very serious spinal injury, which saw him miss like over half a season. He's still 21, so still very, very young, kind of coming back into things. But again, now he plays in the Turkish league, not even for one of the big Turkish clubs. But 4 goals, 4 assists last season in all competitions. Still very good dribble numbers. His defensive output has improved as well. He's been linked now to a step up now that he's getting back into the swing of things. Of course, the other big names are in there. But it's kind of a shame that he never got his shot at Brighton. He kind of was sent out on loan a few times and then moved on. We've seen them struggle to do that. That Brighton did that with Gyökeres as well. So some of these clubs maybe need to trust their youngsters a bit more. So, but again, we'll see if he can come back. I mean, it's no joke coming back from spinal stuff, but he seems to be hitting the ground running, and he's still very young. I think what he needs is just a shot to show what he can do. So, but anyway, as always, that was my pick, my picks from that batch. Who was your pick from this episode in terms of maybe the best players? I mean, it's got to be Hackney for me. Tillman is a very close second, but it's got to be Hackney for me. But you guys let me know in the comments who would be the top player from this batch of players. And let me know what you thought. Who was a hit? Who was a miss? Who did I get right? Who was maybe a bit unlucky with injuries or whatnot? We've got a couple more of these videos left, so keep an eye out for them. I have enjoyed this. Again, apologies for not able to do the live today. A lot going on right now, but I wanted to make sure I still put something out there for you guys. So let me know your thoughts. Please make sure you're liking the video. Please make sure you subscribe to the channel as well. Check those memberships as we do more scouting reports in the future. The memberships are the best way for you to kind of get involved because, I look at those memberships. I look at maybe who's suggesting some players. I look at the player. If we do that scouting report, whoever suggested it is going to get a big shout out. So That's the best way to do it, though. But until next time, you guys, thank you for taking a look. Let me know how I did, and I'll see you on the next stream. Later.